Hello and welcome or welcome back to Talking About Cross Stitch with me. I'm Karen. I'm the Stitching Owl and I come to you on the eve of St. Patrick's Day in 2025. I live in London, Ontario, where yes, we do have both a college and a university, and as such, everybody's Irish tomorrow. So we'll see how much partying goes on. It can start very early in the day, even though it's a Monday with classes. So I hope that the world has been good to you over the last couple of weeks while we were apart. I know that there has been challenges politically, and for the most part, I'm going to set those aside to make this my safe place to just be about the stitching. The one thing I will say is, Stitchers, to me, you are a friend. It doesn't matter if you were born in Canada, the United States, in Europe, you are a friend. So, what is the temperature like in your part of the world? So, if you're in the lower hemisphere, wow. I was watching some Australian stitchers the other day, and they were talking about the cooling down of things and the coming of fall. And for me, that felt very strange because we are still anticipating spring. Now, our March has had quite a varied set of temperatures, and in the last 4 or 5 days it has definitely warmed up enough to melt our snowbanks, and I've actually been outside for a walk. I am a fair weather person, so walking outside means we do definitely have it warmer. So right at the moment, just going to remind you that I am doing the temperature chart of Stitchin' Mommy. We all know her as Sarah here on Flosstube, and she created for this particular year a pattern using specialty stitches, and I wanted to learn them all. So this month it is the diamond eyelet. So here we are. I am actually caught up all the way to today. So in here, I have to tell you, we have ranged from -7 Celsius all the way up to yesterday and today, which is 16 with this yellow. So these look black here when I look into my camera, but they're actually a dark green. I'm going to remind you that I'm using sulky 12-weight floss, so I'm only using one strand at any time. And I am on the back side of a vintage country mocha that allows the focus to be on my changing colors rather than the printed modeling that does happen. So this was January with our Queen stitch, February with our Jessica stitch, and now March with the diamond eyelet. I have to say, I continue to be surprised at one, how quick it is to learn how to do the new stitch and to actually do each one. They don't take long at all, and they don't take much thread. So I assumed, especially like this one where we're making the spirograph, that I was going to be going through a monstrous amount of thread for each and every specialty stitch. It's just not true. I'm truly impressed, and I definitely know that I've got options when I have patterns where there's little happenings all over the place in the middle of nowhere now. They don't just have to be a snowflake or a plus sign. I can use my specialty stitches. So we are headed in the right direction with our temperatures. I will say that at the end of this month, my husband will be doing a run in Hamilton, about an hour from here. It's called Around the Bay. You have an option of many different lengths. He's going to be doing 15K this time. Traditionally, if he did not sign up, it was a beautifully warm day and March was going out like a lamb because this is the end of March, the last weekend. And if he signed up, we would be going out with one more blast of winter. He signed up this year, so in advance, he's apologizing to the people in Southern Ontario if we get snow at the end of the month. Now, for a couple of announcements before I go forward. Canada Swaps 2, the deadline has passed. It was the 10th, so it was this past Monday. My week heading up to the 10th and the 10th itself were absolutely packed with arrivals of emails with pictures that were absolutely delightful. I reached out to just a few people and have had very good response. So I am only waiting for pictures of 2 smalls at this point. I'm going to pause for a couple more days, and if midweek I still don't have those last 2 pictures in, I'm going to go ahead and make the wrap-up video, and I'm only going to do it one time this year rather than each time a new picture came through, taking down the old video and putting up the new video. When we do that, we lose all the past comments, and it's amazing how much more work is added for putting in sometimes 15 seconds. So fingers are crossed those last 2 will arrive in the next 2 or 3 days. Thank you absolutely to everyone who helped to make my event not just prosper but grow. I am so pleased. For those of you who have asked, yes, there will be a Canada Swaps 3, and that timing will be similar to last year, where I announce what the theme is in June so that people can do their send out for the beginning of September. So I'm just so pleased. My next Canada Chats will be the first weekend in April. Now, in the past, I have been doing it on Saturdays, but that particular weekend, I'm supposed to be working at my local needlework shop on the Saturday, so I have flipped it to the Sunday. I will send out emails to everybody who has participated in the past. You do not need to have taken part in Canada Swaps either this time or ever in order to be part of Canada Chats. We just have fun getting together, and there will be no special PDF, so there's nothing for you to wait for the night before or print out. My game goes on without that element. So the first Sunday in April, it will be taking place at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, and a link through Google Meet, which means I just need your email. If you've never done it before, I would love to have you join in. Just send me off an email. My email for Stitching Owl is in the description box below. My Send a Smile program. Well, indeed, I have sent a smile because I sent out my small for Canada Swaps 2, and I sent a card. I just want to say that I am sending hugs and prayers, of course, to Lee of stick strings and other things as she moves through her treatment. Outside of the fact that things have been moving around Canada very well, or mostly very well. Apparently, there has been no ratified contract with Canada Post. Therefore, there is still some ups and downs as to the speed that things are delivered. So if you don't have your small yet, don't despair. Do let me know if you do not have it by the 25th of the March. The challenge we have is that the political climate is a little bit unrested between Canada and the United States right now. And Carolyn Zook sent me a small package and had it returned without explanation. And my husband had said to me, like just days before this email from her, I wonder how this is going to go, whether there's going to be challenges as you guys try and send each other small gifts, things that they can't put the tariff on. So what I'm going to be doing is tomorrow morning I'm going to send an experimental wee package to Carolyn, and we will see if it arrives safe and sound. We'll also be watching out for the trading cards from Laura, Stitching by the Shore, and see whether this affects how the Send a Smile program and how generalized mail-outs go with the Flosstubers in the future. Okay, now I am just going to alert you that I'm going to, instead of saving my shout-outs for one list at the end, I'm going to pop them in and out of my different sections of the video because there are quite a few, and I already have started my list for next time. There seems to be spring in the air and people jumping in with both feet, or the YouTube algorithms sent me some love and I saw somebody that I had never seen before. So my first shout out today is for Susan Xstitch. I've seen one video of hers. She is aiming for monthly videos, very lovely. She loves to stitch samplers, particularly happy with one strand of floss in her needle. She was very natural with her presentation. Immediately, it was as if she was totally comfortable in front of that camera. So, Susan Xstitch. Now, links for these will go in the description box below. Last time I was a little frustrated with my links because I got about 8 of them in. They were going live beautifully, and then suddenly there was nothing I could do to make the links go live for the rest that I inputted. So under those circumstances, a copy and paste will allow you to locate those people. But I'm hoping that all of my links stay live today. Do I have any fully finished items? Not today. I had great plans, and then I got thrown a curveball in that I ended up with a stomach virus that went rampant through my mother's semi-care facility. They closed it down for almost 2 weeks. They opened it up, and even though they had opened it up and I waited till 3 days later, that's when I caught it. And wow, I lost some time. It's amazing how heavy a needle and floss can feel under those circumstances. So one of the first things that went out the window was planning to do fully finished items. And of course I had to miss a Stitching with Sandy afternoon, which I deeply regretted, but you wouldn't have understood my voice anyway. Okay, but I do have some finished objects. So as expected, I was able to finish irises by Owl Forest Embroidery. I stitched this with 2 strands of DMC on 32 count Lugana. I've got plenty of fabric to figure out my framing or fully finishing with this guy. I am absolutely thrilled with this. Still would love it if Pattern Keeper would have a round of applause or some fireworks when you actually got down to 0 stitches left, but not yet. So this was the stitch that always reminded me of my childhood home, and particularly my mother and father out in the gardens where they very carefully took care of their irises. Now, what else do I have? Well, I'm just going to grab this tiny board. My Whip-Go board is more of a start go. There's my hair sticking out. I am working with Amy of Renewing Stitches and Sarah, the rocking chair stitcher, to fill my Whip-Go board with stitching new ornaments. Now, what I did this time was I put designer names throughout so that when a designer's name comes up, I can find something appropriately seasonal that fits that particular designer. So last month, I had started Kiss Me by Shannon Christine in anticipation of St. Patrick's Day. And I did finish the stitching. So this is Vintage Country Mocha, 32 count. And here I used 2 strands of CXC floss, which, because it is fluffier than DMC, there was times it was a little hard to actually get all of the threads through the holes when everybody was congested here in the center, but it still lays beautifully flat, and I'm looking forward to fully finishing this. So, I had a little fluff on the edge. I really did enjoy doing this particular stitch for something that is 2.5 by 3.5. There were 16 to 20 colors. So the shading, like I will say, those are really lovely clovers. But there's quite a few colors of green in there. So that was finish number 2. My next one is a start and finish. It is by Darling and Whimsy. Darling and Whimsy came up as my designer for March on my Whip-Go. And I was excited because I felt a little bit behind with my Shannon Christine. I knew that a Quirky Quaker could go quickly. So here I have a start and finish of the Whale Quirky Quaker. I used sulky thread, and I didn't stay completely with the suggested colors by the designer. She invites us to get as experimental as we want. My one thing is, in person, the 2 fish here show up better than they do here. But I used a variegated blue for what I felt were bubbles and the spout. And these here look almost white, and it's actually gray. So it was interesting that this particular hand-dyed by Rolanda opalescent Lugana, in person, sometimes the gray looks pink. Sometimes the background looks blue. This is a very, very neat fabric to work with. but one has to be aware that the color that you're picturing as you're stitching when you step back might end up changed a bit. And my next finish is Strawberry Gnome by Neni Design. Again on a hand dyed by Rolanda, but this is a 36 count even weave. Now, I just think that this is adorable, and I realize that gnomes are not everybody's cup of tea, and I don't particularly know how I'm going to fully finish him, but he was fun. And for me, that's all stitching gnomes are about. In person, there is texture in the beard. It is not just white. You can clearly see the seeds and shading of the strawberries on his hat. There is backstitch here in the little blossoms and the leaves of the plant. And of course, then we've got our basket full of strawberries. So I think he's cute, and that the shading in the nose of this gnome, I think it has 4 colors in it. I think it's really effective. And just gently reminding you that the pattern went into Pattern Keeper without a hitch. So Neni Designs is definitely one I would go back to. She's got more gnomes I might do. I think I might take a break from doing gnomes for just a little while because I seem to have a reasonable amount of whips on the go without adding another gnome. And I actually have a 5th finish. The last time we were together, Mary of Mary's Stitching Corner and I joined with Connie to start Fox and Butterflies by Pigeon Coop Designs. Now, the day that we were going to start this, it was Connie's turn to have the flu. But I'm actually the last one finished here. Connie and Mary are done. And here is my Fox and Butterflies, again stitched on a 36 count even weave, hand dyed by Rolanda. You're going to hear she's my favorite hand dyer, and I'm so excited to purchase more fabric from her at Stitch North in May. So just reminding you that when it comes to Max Pigeon's designs, he uses relatively few colors of floss, but manages to get across a sense of shading, and it's got both the sense of simplicity and color mixed together. Initially, I was a little concerned about how orange this fox is, but I love him now. My other finish is actually not cross stitch. Later on this month, I'm going to be teaching a technique for quilting called paper piecing, where designers, such as this one's by Violet Craft, who's online and has magnificent quilts. What we're doing is we're making quilts where no 2 blocks are the same. This one's called Forest Abstractions, and what I am doing is the first block that I work with is the smallish block, and this is Hummingbird. I know, Kim is going, that's a pink hummingbird. Why, yes it is. So that's what it was called for, and we are going to be using solids, Northcott solids, so that as people learn the technique, if they have cut the fabric a little bit differently than the shape should have, they can just turn it over and it won't affect the picture. Whereas if they've got a patterned design on each of these. Cutting wrong means they actually have to go and cut more material because flipping it over, they'll be on the wrong side. Now, just to show you, I have not taken out the paper yet. This is what that design looks like. So I sewed through the paper on each one of these lines. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. And within each section, we had up to about 12 parts. Sometimes there was just 2 or 3. And this is what you get in the end. It's a very precise way of quilting. I really like paper piecing, and I'm looking forward to sharing how I do things with other quilters. Now, future fun. I'm not starting another gnome. However, Connie, Mary, and I are going to be starting Rowdy J very soon. We've all been kitting it up, and I suspect that we'll be starting it sometime this week. And then there were plans for me to start Flossability's Cabin in the Woods with Mary last Monday, but I was too ill to do so, so we're going to find a time for that. Now, I'm really excited, and I know that somewhat puts my whips up. When I looked at my list for March, so far my list includes 21 projects. But you see that I just finished 5 of those projects. So I'm okay with adding a couple of starts. Okay, let's do a shout out. So, Steph.xstitch, I believe one video, Whip Parade. She might be working on another video now. Stephanie is from Wales, and of course that means I love her accent. She is somebody who also discussed a tiny bit about loving to do adult coloring through the last 5 years and how that affected her sense of color. And I know that we're going to see some beautifully colorful works in the future. I'm really looking forward to seeing where she goes with her channel. Also, a shout out for Sloan Stitches, who has 5 videos now. She's got excellent clarity of speech and flow, very wide variety of projects. One of the things that she showed this time was a finish that had a lot of Disney characters. Now, it's not like one of the full coverage Disney kits as Lisa Forest City Stitching is doing, but it turned out to be a massive project that she has completed, and if you like Disney at all, I hope you'll go see what that project was. Let's go into works in progress. So, as you know, Samantha the Huga Stitcher gifted me this pattern, which is the Patchwork Calendar by Owl Forest Embroidery. There is a different patchwork block for each month of the year. And this month, I have been working on March. Now, when you see the stitched version, you are looking at something that has been stitched with Owl Forest variegated floss. I have a lot of different boxes of floss, so I went through my box of variegated and discovered that I had Weeks Dye Works Lucky and as such. This is how far I have gotten. So literally, I have to do the border, and that's it. I think this variegated green is lovely. This is a mottled gray, vintage something, vintage windy day, or it wasn't stormy night. It's a 25 count Lugana, where I'm using one strand of cotton over one thread on here, and I have to say I really am enjoying doing the 25 count with these teeny tiny stitches. Okay, so now the question is, what comes up next? So just try and set things aside. Okay. So I have been working on Barred Owl by Mudpuppy Stitchery. Now, Kenzie has created an entire showcase of raptors, I believe on her last video, because she's a Flosstuber as well. She said that she was wrapping up this series. I believe it's 6 in total. Now, I saw another one that I'm thinking, oh dear, I might need to go and look at that when I'm finished this one. So, let's see. I have now stitched 543 stitches here, and that means it is 2/3 complete. I was surprised how long it took for me to get across this widest set of feathers on. It feels like this is a hood at the back of the head. Right here is where I'm going to have the owl looking out. So I do get to actually stitch on the face in the upcoming weeks. This did not get the 5 days a week that it has in the past because I felt behind in my stitching, and yeah, that's just sort of the way it is. Again, this one went into Pattern Keeper, so I have found it quite straightforward to stitch. Now, last time we were together, I was bemoaning the fact that I didn't know what to do with, oh dear, I need to go backwards. Yes, last month, I was bemoaning the fact that I didn't know what to do with Laura Stitching by the Shore's prompt, something to do with a Dr. Seuss book. And I've got to tell you, many of you had some wonderful, wonderful suggestions for how I could link it up. So if I do this and say, green eggs and ham, this is green just like the ham. I know that I had watched other people similarly struggle with Dr. Seuss, but once you guys sort of gave me a jump start, I was totally thinking, oh my, there's so many things that I could do. So, yes. And did I miss anything else? No. Barred Owl. Got it. Okay, so next, I have Owl's Night Out. This is a Jen's Fiber Web pattern, and it is close to a finish. All I have left is a moon to put up here. I've got my bats, I've got my possum, my moonflower, my other flowers, So this one I am stitching on a 40 count Verdal, again hand dyed by Rolanda. This was charted with 4 basic colors, and I have to admit that I am thinking that I want my moon something other than a crew color or off-white. So I put some coloring into my flowers, just gentle coloring, and I think I'm going to use a variegated yellow. Overall, this has been a fun stitch, and it is a free pattern. If you go back a couple of videos on Jen's Fiber Web, or reach out to her through her email, she will make it possible for you to have the link to this particular pattern. Now I am already stitching Christmas. Originally I had thought I'd be stitching Christmas on like the 24th and the 25th of the month, and then the rest of the time I wouldn't, but I chose a stocking for my daughter-in-law. And when it went into Pattern Keeper and it said 23,700 and some odd stitches, I went, oh, I'm not going to get it done anytime in this year if I don't give it some about 2,000 stitches a month. Now I am behind that, but this is Siamese Cat at the Window, cross stitch kits by Alla on Etsy. They still have their 50% off sale going till the end of the month. I am stitching with 1 strand of cotton floss, and it is DMC on an Ecru 20 count Aida, whatever you want to call it. Full coverage. It is, which doesn't scare me at all. I have stitched 3,610 stitches for 15.23%. So at 2,000 stitches a month, that means the next time I sit down to do this, I will get February's assignment done, but I haven't started March's stitching yet. So when I bring this up close, you can start to see this is an ear and this is an ear of the Siamese cat. And I made it all the way across with the curtains that are above the kitten's head. This will be a moon. So I am pleased with this. I'm happy with my 1 strand. No, this will not be a big stocking. If you did this, what would be normal stocking, let's fill it with treats size, it would be best to do this on a 14 count or 28 2/2. Okay, and now I'm like, oh, where did I put it? If you're new to my channel, one of the things you're going to discover is that if I touch about 20 things in a month, that's my entire set of whips mostly. And it's almost like you get a whip parade every time because you will usually see about 15 projects each 2 weeks. So True North is a pattern by the Rocking Chair Stitcher. I am stitching on a 32 count Azure even weave with 1 strand of CXC. This is a lovely stitch. It's mostly 2 colors. There will be a flagpole over here to put in, and there's a few more words up here and down here. So my plan with this is to just work at it gently. I could have had it actually done probably in a week, but I want to actually finish it at Stitch North. So I'm fine with just doing a little bit here and there. I just will say this is 1,721 stitches, and it goes into Pattern Keeper as well. Now, one strand on 32 count. The reason this looks as full as it is a CXC thread. Thank you to everybody who popped in for my Flosstube Extra, where I discussed DMC versus Sullivan's versus CXC. I was really, really pleased with the response to that video, and have to say that for the most part, the comments had to do either with giving comments or asking questions about texture. And what I will say is that I would call DMC a smooth cotton. I would call Sullivan's a slightly more coarse cotton. You feel more texture in your hands. And for some people, they might not like that feeling. Other people, doesn't bother at all. CXC, I said, was a little bit fluffier and filled in 32 count more fully. The question was, is it slippery? And I was like, well, actually, no, I didn't find it slippery. Fluffy and slippery don't have to be synonymous. It's just that little bit thicker. The one that I find a slippery stitch is the satin threads by DMC. Those guys are slippery. Yes. So this is done in CXC. And thank you to Sarah for providing me with a chart as a surprise. One more shout out. I'd like to do a shout out for Star Garnet Stitchery. Now, Cheryl has been on Flosstube before with her friend that she worked with, co-worker, when they both worked at Maggie's on Main. Cheryl is now staying at home, doing her quilting business, mothering her children who are homeschooled. So she decided she was going to do Flosstube as a singular, and she certainly is well versed in how to do this, in how to impart lots of information. Now, the thing that I found interesting, well, I mean, she had so many things that were interesting. In 2024, she did not stop herself from making purchases. However, she stopped herself from stitching the purchases she bought. So she had this giant clear tote that she put her new purchases in. And now in 2025, she's looking at those for the new starts now that she has whipped herself down a bit. So I'm not sure if I explained that super well. I hope you'll go to Star Garnet Stitchery and have a watch. She does videos approximately the same length as mine. Now, when we go on with the stitching, my next stitch, I am stitching with Alyssa of Alyssa Jones Flosstube, who, yes, she just added another video this past week, so I am thrilled. Our plan had been to start the Raccoon by Cottage Garden Samplings, and I just realized that I did not bring down the picture on the front of the pattern. I'll try and pop it in somewhere. So the reason we picked this one together was that it was springy. It had light pink, no, not tulips, but they're flowers. of some sort. So right here with my raccoon, I seem to have been stitching on the tail and his derriere, and I have 2,721 stitches, which is 37.28%. This is on a 36 count even weave hand dyed by Rolanda. Now the day we were stitching this online together, Alyssa did not know what happened. She had her stash of all of her patterns because she had them all auto-mailed to her, and she could not find the raccoon. So instead she started the bear while I started the raccoon because that's the one that I had kitted up. But I said, don't you worry, I will start the bear as well so that we are doing that one together. And this is how far I have gotten with the bear. So this is 1,772 stitches for 21.91%. Now I'm finding the bear so far the easiest stitch of the year in the woods because there are swirls of color that they all add up to block stitching, whereas everybody else has these almost quilt-like patterns somewhere that end up with you needing to alternate between 2 or 3 colors. So I think the bear will go together quickly. It's just that I didn't start it at the same time I started the raccoon. And I'm certainly thinking I want to do more of these this calendar year and not let the other patterns that I've got in my stash languish without being used. Now I did have another new start. Yeah, I do love to watch my British Flosstubers, Irish, I love it. So you know I watch Sew Me Sarah, of course we watch Sew Me Sarah, and I watch Flossie Sews and Grows and Stitchy Sally. Well, Stitchy Sally had a birthday, and Flossie Sews and Grows is doing Celebrate British Designers. So we have a situation where Sally started Rockin' Robin by Love Poppett Designs. Actually, I think both Sallys started this. And so I thought, I'm going to go onto the website and see what it looks like. So it wasn't a particularly big pattern, so I purchased it and downloaded it and discovered that it's very much like stitching a Max Pigeon design in that there is relatively few color changes, but how the color changes are used are really excellent. And somewhere along the line, there will be some pattern component that is a CC stitching, meaning you stitch around a shape and the shape shows by having the background show through. Now, I have not done much on my Rockin' Robin. Yeah, hang on. Let me hold it the correct way up. Here we go. There's the chest of the robin. This will turn out to be a dark, dark red, 816. And then there's a twig that will come out. This is a bottom leaf. There will be berries. And this is a 36 count linen called Mint Strawberry. I believe I purchased this at Stitch North from Brin & Needle. So I'm having fun, and I admit that even if I make a purchase that is a digital purchase, he can't travel alone. So I also purchased another one, Coastal Waves, which I know has been stitched by a few people. It's about the same size as the Robin, and when I'm just itching to get into summer stitching, it will be sitting there waiting for me. Yep, it'll be great. So this is a modest 335 stitches, but it's already 19.82%. Yes, love Poppett designs. Pop into Pattern Keeper. You don't have to input colors. It just goes in without question. Absolutely delightful. As I look around. Now, the last time we were together, I talked about an Etsy designer that was brand new to me called Mama Piggy X Stitch, who had reached out to me and said, may I gift you a cross stitch pattern and have you chat about it on your Flosstube? And I said, well, sure, I can do that. So she sent it to me, and again, within her Etsy, which will be linked below, she advertises that her patterns are Pattern Keeper compatible. Now, I picked something that was a folk pattern, so I'm calling this a floral folk mandala, which means that you really do need to mark. I've got a marking up here that says what's the top, because all four sides will look the same. You can easily get this so that you got your X's going in the wrong direction. Now, I stopped here. This is a 40 count white verdal, and I'm stitching a 1/1. If I stopped here, this could be a delightful small, and these look like the African violets that were on many a counter as I grew up. My grandmother loved growing African violets, and yes, you guessed it, every African violet had a doily under it. Now, I will continue with my stitching. It continues on for a bigger circle, and then it becomes more tulip style. So I anticipate that I will be able to finish this for you next time. I have stitched 714 stitches, which is just shy of half done. It is 47.54%. So I'm just going to hold that up closer. Now, for people like Contented Needleworker Kim, this could easily be done as a small using a variety of pinks. And if you're somebody that likes to do oranges into yellows, yes, indeed, I could picture it that way too. So the nice thing about these patterns, I think they've got about 300 patterns on the Etsy. You've got options for the mandalas that you can play around with your own coloration. Now that brings me to a Quaker flag. This, of course, is by Vivsters on Etsy and has been going strong for over a year. A lot of people started their flags on the leap day last year in the hope that over 4 years they would have their flag finished. Now, I would prefer not to take 4 years, and I started this 2-week period going great guns, stitching away. I got a Quaker done in the first week and thought, ooh, I'm going to get 2 done. And then I got sick and I never got back to it. But here I am. So this is the one that I did, so that means I've got this completely done for that diagonal. You can see I've got a little bit started here, and I'm ready to put this guy in to do this diagonal. So on here, I have 25,299 stitches for 52.29%. This is 44 Quakers completed. So the flag itself, I've got a little bit of the body and this part that will be mirrored over here. This point right here is where I will be starting the bar of red over here. So I can actually really feel this one progressing. I don't know if I'm going fast enough in order to aim for Stitch North in October completion. We'll see. I'm not going to be upset if it can't be done. On the other hand, I might try. Okay, and now I need to unpin. Because everybody knows what I saved to be my final whip. It is, of course, my By the Shore by Stitches So Beautiful. And indeed, I did have a couple of nights where there was 0 stitching on this. So not quite as many stitches as is typical for a fortnight. I have already been asked, are you trying to make it up? Yeah, I am a little. Instead of 500 stitches a night, I'm trying to do 550 stitches. And we'll just see at the end of March, I will be doing the math so that I can see how many stitches I need to be doing in order to be finished for Stitch North for this one, because that is the purpose here. And here I am. You'll notice that when I was doing the dog, some of the browns in his head were also partly what was here on the sand in front of the water, or maybe it's a road, probably a road. Although that would put the dog very close to a road. Let's say it's sand so he's safe. So I just kept going here, and this is almost the halfway point across. My goal this week was, I had this in and then there was a bunch blank here. So I filled in most of the lake there. I got more of this gold tree in. So you can definitely see I've got some stitching to do to finish straight up from this point. But for the most part, I've done well at filling this in. So I've got 61,962 stitches for 37.55%. And of course, I'm using one strand of called for DMC on 20 count Aida cloth. And by now it has been, this is just the stiff Aida cloth you get off a bolt. But I find with full coverage, because I stitch on my full coverage daily, that it softens up quite nicely. And so it won't be difficult to do the fully finishing because it'll be soft enough at that point. I'll just straighten that out. Oh no, oh, there we go. That's why it's looking like it's tucked. I'm so pleased. And even though I was sick last Monday, I still posted my picture on Stitches So Beautiful. Now I'd like to do a shout out for Court Designs. Courtney, love the fact that you shortened that for your channel name. She's got 3 videos now and is a lover of all things theater. I believe it's actually how she makes a living as well. She designs patterns as well as stitches other people's patterns, and her designs are based on the posters for theatrical productions. She also loves Lola Crow patterns. She crochets, and she is embracing the idea of a scrapbooking for the smalls finishes. So Laura, you might like to watch her. Speaking of Laura, this is the week that we are going to be starting our Doreen Jones butterflies. I believe we're starting them on the 20th. I'll put a picture up of the one that I'm doing. And this is a full coverage that has no backstitch in it and just is shouting for spring. Happily, I did have a trip to my L&S yesterday so that I could fill in the colors that I could not find. Some of them I believe I had in other patterns, but I don't want to mess things up, and yeah, I just bought new flosses. So Laura challenged me to come up with a butterfly Sal name, and I was like, if we say something like Stitch All the Butterflies, it invites everybody to have a peek at Doreen Jones, but not to have to do it as a Doreen Jones. For instance, EJ of the Sunshine Stitchers, we are trying to encourage EJ to finish her temperature stitch from, I think it's 2023, that is the butterflies from Stitchin' Mommy. And she can do it. I can tell she's on course to finish it this week. So, not this week, this year. So let's call it Stitch All the Butterflies. And we will have some fun doing that together. So I hope we can have a number of you join us. I think Amy, who loves butterflies from Renewing Stitches, Mary of Mary's Stitching Corner, and if you're thinking that means there's 3 new starts with Mary, indeed it does. Mary and I are getting along very well. Yes, we're enabling each other something fierce. And a shout out for Stitching Magic 3, 3 being 3 sticks like the Roman numbers. 2 videos. Lindsay is a fantastic UK Flosstuber who stitched years ago, set it down, came back to it and went, whoa, look at what we can do now, which is exactly what happened to me. And like me, she finds great solace in her stitching on a day that might otherwise be a bit challenging. She does love caterpillar cross stitch and of course catkin and lily patterns. You've seen me do catkin and lily patterns before, and I think I've got more in my future. Now, there is a new event by the magazine monthly cross stitch challenge called Springo. We have done Burringo, we have done ABC-Singo. Springo has its own set of rules and its own board. And instead of my trying to explain it right now, I'm going to encourage you to answer the questions and join the Facebook group Magazine Monthly Cross Stitch Challenge, because what we find is that there's a full explanation of how to set up your board. What we're doing for the word Springo is we are attaching one project to each of the letters. And if you're counting and thinking that's more than 5 letters, yes, that's part of the fun. Carolyn is trying to set this up so that nobody can get a blackout, and not everybody is necessarily going to get a bingo. I think that's a lot of fun. So there can be up and down and across, but not diagonal bingos. So for my S, I'm doing Stitches So Beautiful, so I'll be using my By the Shore. For my P, I'm using Patchwork Calendar. For my R, Rockin' Robin. For my I, It's So Emma. I will be starting this week my springtime ornaments. I'm doing this with Allison, Mrs. AZ Family Zoo, where we have an ornament Sal. The N is True North by Rocking Chair Stitcher. The G is Cottage Garden Samplings. So I'm going to continue the bear and the raccoon. If for some reason I absurdly get both of those done, I have more patterns and I haven't decided which one I'm going to next, but I'm sure I will think of something. And then of course the O is the Barred Owl by Mudpuppy Designs. I'm actually kind of wondering if I'll spread that one out to also finish him at Stitch North the first weekend in May. The reason I'm doing this is I know that Cross Stitch MD is at home going, what can I finish? And she'll bring humongous patterns and she'll finish multiple things at Stitch North. And I'm like, oh, I want to be that person too. So mine won't be humongous, but I'd like to finish more than one. A generalized announcement. March has 5 Sundays. Therefore, the 5th Sunday is going to be a Flosstube Extra, another one of my compare videos. And therefore, my next regular video is in 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. My compare videos, my goal is 10 minutes or less. My final shout outs, I told you there's quite a few. Gently Smiling Jaws. She's got 35 videos and I had never found her before. And when I look at how many subscribers that she has, I'm thinking that the algorithms are just not being Jaws friendly. So I'm hoping that she'll pop over and boost her numbers. Danielle provides clear chapters for each project so you can jump around very easily. She includes a book review, and this is the year of the snake. So she's provided a free snake temperature pattern in case you want to use a snake pattern as your temperature chart in the year of the snake. I thought that was brilliant. And lastly, Jason Cross Stitches has one video, and I just watched him in the last couple of days. He's been stitching for less than a year, and he says, I'm self-proclaimed newbie, but I'm hooked. And I'm like, oh my, he is. What he has done in a number of months is gone from something relatively small and simple to he's actually started a full coverage. And the last thing he said was, ooh, I'm kind of wondering about doing 1/1 on a higher count now. I'm like, go for it, Jason. I can't wait to see where you take your channel. And now for my moment for music. I have a piece called Go to Sleep, which by any other name would be called Lullaby. And of course, it would be really hard to go to sleep with a dog barking in your front window. I promise you she's not allowed to be there when we are trying to go to sleep. So, Heinrich Hoffmann is a late romantic composer whose works are very charming. I really like them. They're just not put on very many concert programs these days. Having said that, during his lifetime, he was actually quite well known in his homeland, Germany, and his operas and symphonic works were actually put on quite often. So I do happily teach Hoffmann pieces to my students. You just have to hunt for them and then you find the charm. So I hope you will enjoy this rendition of Go to Sleep. And here we are again. It's time to say goodbye. And it's going to be 3 weeks this time till I see you again for a full video. So I know I'm going to miss you. I do look forward to doing these so much. Thank you, thank you. The comments you leave mean so much. They help my channel to grow. They brighten my day. I love the interaction I have with you. And I hope you will continue being so thoughtful with what your comments are. The response to how great thou art the last time really touched my heart as I discovered that people who thought they'd forgotten the words long ago suddenly broke into song and sang along. That was so special to me. Thank you. But until we meet again, I hope that today you had needle, floss, and fabric in hand, and that as you made something beautiful, you made yourself happy. Bless you. Stay safe. Bye-bye for now.